The rain hadn't stopped for 3 days. The outpost roofs hissed beneath the downpour, every droplet rattling against the metal like a warning. Elias Ward stood by the cracked window of his cabin, watching the night swallow the horizon. The storms on Terrath 9 had a way of finding their way into the bones. Acid rain, charged winds, electromagnetic flashes that painted the sky in sickly green veins. He'd long since learned to love the noise, kept the silence away. The silence was worse. The silence reminded him of what happened on Ivara Prime, the screaming, the ash, and the moment the skies burned red. Humanity called it the armistice. The aliens called it extinction. Elias just called it the day the universe went quiet. He turned from the window and poured the last of his recycled water into a cup. His power reserves were running low again, and the filtration unit was making that death rattle he couldn't fix without a new module. He'd trade for one, if there were anyone left nearby to trade with. But the frontier was empty now. Just him, the storms, and the ghosts of 2 species that once thought they could share the stars. He just sat down when the knock came. 3 slow, uneven thuds against metal, like someone unfamiliar with doors. Elias froze, cup halfway to his lips. No one should have been out there. The perimeter alarms hadn't triggered, and the sensors didn't register movement. Still, there it was again. A trembling knock, followed by a weak voice, muffled by the storm. "Please, open please." He grabbed his old pulse rifle and moved to the door. Through the small viewing slit, lightning illuminated a figure on the threshold. A woman. No, something that only looked human. Pale skin that shimmered faintly in the rain, eyes too large, glowing faint amber. She was drenched, trembling, wearing what looked like torn containment cloth. Her hands clutched the doorframe like she'd fall without it. "Who are you?" Elias shouted through the metal. "Please," she gasped, voice breaking. I'll offer myself. Shelter. Just, please, they're coming." The words made his stomach twist. Offer herself? Like she was trading her body for safety? The way she said it wasn't seductive. It was terrified. He hesitated, eyes flicking to the weapon at his side. This planet was crawling with scavengers, pirates, deserters, hell, even automated drones that sometimes mimicked human voices. But something about her didn't feel like a trick. She wasn't armed. She was freezing, shaking so hard he could hear the joints in her bones creak. He opened the door a fraction, the rifle still raised. The woman flinched back, shielding her face from the rain. When their eyes met, Elias forgot how to breathe. Beneath the dirt and blood, her features were sharp yet fragile, almost sculpted. Her pupils were vertical slits, faintly luminescent. He'd seen eyes like that before, during the war. "You're Kether," he whispered. Her breath hitched. "Please let me in. I won't survive another hour out here." He should have shut the door. Every part of him screamed to. The Kether had slaughtered human colonies during the occupation. They'd called humans primitives, unfit to breathe the same air. He still remembered their war cry echoing through the ruins of Ivara Prime. Yet the woman standing in the storm didn't look like a conqueror. She looked hunted. He lowered the rifle slightly. "Who's chasing you?" "Not who," she said, voice cracking. "What?" Before he could ask, a distant shriek tore through the rain. A metallic scream that echoed across the plains. She staggered toward him, fear widening her eyes. Elias swore under his breath and pulled her inside. The door slammed shut, sealing them in darkness. She collapsed near the heater, gasping for air, her skin steaming where the acid rain had touched. Elias tossed her a thermal blanket, then knelt nearby, watching as she clutched the fabric around herself. "Name?" he asked. She hesitated. "Saren." "Saren what?" "Just Saren." They took the rest. He frowned. "You said something was coming. What was that noise outside?" She looked toward the window, the faint light from the heater reflecting in her amber eyes. "Hunters. Not human. Not Kether. Machines built from both. They don't stop until nothing with a pulse is left standing." He thought she was delirious. "There's no such hybrid program. The war's been over 10 years. Her gaze snapped to him. "Has it? Then why are they still burning the skies on my homeworld? Lightning flashed, and for a split second, Elias saw something etched into the side of her neck, metallic threads pulsing faintly, almost like a neural implant. Except the design wasn't human. It wasn't Kether either. It was something else entirely. "What the hell did you do?" he whispered. "I ran," she said softly. "That's all. I ran because they made me something I didn't want to be." Her voice trembled, and Elias saw a tear cut through the dirt on her face. "They said if I didn't agree, they'd erase me. They called it integration." He leaned back slowly, trying to piece it together. Integration was a rumor, an experimental alliance program that supposedly tried to merge human and Kether minds to create peace. It was banned after it turned soldiers insane. But if what she said was true, someone had continued it. "You're saying they turned you into a weapon," he murmured. Saren nodded weakly. "And now they want me back." Elias exhaled, rubbing his temples. "You picked the wrong planet to hide on, Saren. This place is dead for a reason." "I didn't pick it," she said. "I followed a signal. It said human refuge. I thought." Her eyes softened. "I thought maybe humans still offered shelter." The words hit him harder than he expected. He'd seen the aftermath of Kether attacks, the dead villages, the smoldering ruins, but this woman looked like she'd seen worse. He wanted to believe she was lying, but the fear in her voice was too real. "You're safe here for now," he said at last. "But if those things you mentioned find you, you'll bring them right to my door." "I'll leave in the morning," she whispered. "No, you'll rest first," he said, turning away. "Then we'll decide what to do." He moved to check the sensors again, but the power flickered. The rain outside grew harsher, and through the interference, the radar blipped. 3 faint signatures moving fast across the valley. Not human, not standard drones. He zoomed in and saw sleek, jointed figures gliding across the terrain, eyes burning like twin stars. He cursed under his breath. "They're here," he said. Saren stood, clutching the blanket around her. "Then you should have never opened the door. Too late for that." He pulled open a weapons crate and handed her an old kinetic pistol. She looked at it as though it were a relic from another lifetime. "I don't kill," she said softly. "Then stay behind me." The cabin lights flickered again. A low hum filled the air, followed by a thud against the outer hull. The storm muffled most of the sound, but Elias could feel the vibration through the floor. Something was scanning the structure. He raised his rifle and motioned for her to stay low. Through the reinforced glass, he caught a glimpse of movement, a figure like liquid metal shifting between forms. Its face was blank, but its movements were precise, efficient. "What are those things?" he whispered. Saren's voice trembled. "They're what happens when peace fails." One of the figures stopped outside the door and leaned close, scanning the lock. Then, in a distorted mimic of a human voice, it spoke. 3 words that made Elias's blood run cold. "Return the hybrid." He looked back at Saren. She was shaking violently, whispering something under her breath in Ketheri. The door shook again. A metallic claw punctured through the frame. Elias fired once. The shot cracked like thunder. Sparks exploded from the impact, and the creature stumbled back, but didn't fall. It reformed, shifting the damaged metal like fluid flesh. Saren screamed, and in that scream, something impossible happened. The air shimmered around her. The heater's flame bent toward her voice, and for one heartbeat, Elias saw light burst from beneath her skin, like living circuitry pulsing in rhythm with fear. The creature outside hesitated, almost recoiling. Then it screeched, a horrible mechanical wail that shook the cabin. Elias turned to her, stunned. "What the hell was that?" She clutched her head, tears streaking her face. "I told you. They made me something else. I can feel them when they're near." The door bent inward. The creature was forcing its way through. Elias fired again and again, but it wasn't enough. The rounds tore metal, but the thing kept moving. "Is there a way to stop them?" he shouted. She looked up, eyes glowing bright gold now. "Only if I stop being afraid." Before he could ask what she meant, she stood, the blanket falling away. The markings on her neck spread down her arms, lighting up like molten veins. The air vibrated as though the storm itself was answering her. Then she stepped toward the door, barefoot, trembling, but no longer running. The machine tore through the last layer of metal and lunged, and she raised her hand. For a split second, time froze. Light exploded from her palm, wrapping around the creature like a net of fire and static. It convulsed, screaming in a sound that wasn't mechanical anymore, almost human. Then it disintegrated into dust. Saren collapsed. The markings faded. The heater flickered weakly, the rain outside turning to mist. Elias stood there, speechless, staring at the ashes where the creature had stood. The storm's roar seemed distant now, as though the world itself was holding its breath. When he finally looked down at her, she whispered one last thing before passing out. "They know where I am now." Elias dragged her onto the cot, checking her pulse. It was rapid but steady. The glow beneath her skin had faded, but faint patterns still pulsed along her neck, like afterimages of circuitry. He stared at them, wondering if she was even alive in the way humans were. Outside, the storm still roared, masking the occasional metallic echo that carried across the barren hills. The other hunters hadn't come closer yet, but he knew they would. Machines like those didn't give up. He moved to the control terminal, booting up what was left of the perimeter array. The sensors crackled and blinked through static, half their circuits corroded from years of acid rain. 3 blips had vanished. One remained, motionless, far out in the valley. Waiting, watching. Elias shut the console off and turned to the sleeping alien. Saren. The name didn't sound Kether. It didn't sound human either. He'd met Kether soldiers before. Their pride, their perfection, their obsession with purity. But this woman had called herself hunted by her own kind. That alone meant she was either mad or dangerous in a way he couldn't yet see. He remembered how she'd looked when the creature broke through his door. The fear, the sudden blaze of light, the way her scream had twisted the air itself. He could still smell the ozone from it, still hear the echo of that thing's death cry fading into the storm. Elias picked up his old datapad and started recording a log. His voice came out low and tired. Ward, Elias. Log entry 497. Unknown female hybrid physiology. Claims to be part Kether, part something else. Displays neural resonance response under stress, possible energy manipulation. Further observation required. He stopped, thumb hovering over the record button. For a moment, he saw himself through the eyes of some future investigator. Another broken soldier harboring something he shouldn't. The war had ended, but his instincts hadn't. You never trusted the enemy, even when they looked human. Especially when they looked human. Then she stirred. Her eyes opened slowly, pupils contracting against the dim light. She looked at him with a quiet wariness, as if unsure whether she was still alive. "You didn't leave me outside," she whispered. "Didn't have the heart to," Elias said. "You should have." She sat up, wincing. "They'll trace the discharge from what I did. They'll come again." He leaned against the wall, arms folded. "You mind telling me what you did exactly? Because if I'm going to die on this rock, I'd like to know whether it's because I helped a war criminal or a walking reactor." Her gaze fell. "Neither. I'm an experiment." He raised an eyebrow. "That's supposed to make me feel better?" "I was part of Project Meridian," she said quietly. "After the war ended, there were factions on both sides that refused to accept peace. They believed integration was the only future. If they could fuse Kether empathy fields with human neurostability, they could create beings immune to conflict. Beings who could bridge both species. Elias frowned. "I heard about that program. It was shut down after the test subjects lost their minds." "I didn't lose mine," she said. "They made sure of it." "How?" She hesitated. "By taking pieces away until I couldn't feel fear." The words hit him like a punch. For a long moment, neither spoke. The heater hummed softly, filling the silence between them. Elias finally said, "That doesn't explain what you did to that thing outside." Saren's expression darkened. They gave me a link to the swarm. It's hard to describe. The hunters, they're drawn to my signal. They think I'm one of them, but when I resist, they feel it. I can shut them down if I push hard enough. So you're connected to those things, Elias said slowly. You're not just running from them, you're part of them. I was, she whispered, until I broke free. But it's not permanent. The link still lives in me. Every time I use it, they find me again. Elias turned away, rubbing the bridge of his nose. This was worse than he'd thought. A living beacon for machines designed to hunt. His cabin might already be compromised. You shouldn't have come here, he muttered. Her voice softened. I didn't mean to. I was just looking for one place that wouldn't kill me on sight. That hit deeper than he wanted to admit. He'd seen what humans did to captured Kether after the war. People always said peace had returned, but in the colonies, vengeance was just a quieter form of war. He exhaled and sat opposite her. All right, Saren. You can stay until the storm clears. Then you move on. She nodded without looking at him. Fair. But something in her tone carried sadness he couldn't name. They spent the next few hours in uneasy quiet. Elias repaired the generator, while Saren sat near the window, staring into the darkness. Every now and then, she'd tilt her head slightly, like she was listening to something he couldn't hear. What do you keep hearing? He finally asked. She blinked, as if waking from a trance. Memories, but not mine. The link sometimes replays what they see. It's like being haunted by someone else's eyes. Elias studied her face. The words didn't sound poetic, they sounded like pain. You sure you're not just hearing ghosts? Ghosts would be kinder, she said softly. Lightning split the sky again, flooding the cabin with light. For a fraction of a second, Elias thought he saw shapes in the distance, tall silhouettes moving across the ridge. But when he looked closer, the rain blurred everything away. You said they'd come again, he said. How long do we have? She turned toward him, her eyes reflecting the faint light like molten glass. They always come before dawn. Elias checked his watch. 2 hours until sunrise. He tightened the seals on the windows and loaded another power cell into the turret mounted outside. He hadn't used the defense grid in years, but maybe it could hold off whatever came next. Saren rose unsteadily and moved beside him. You're wasting energy. They adapt. Then I'll make it expensive for them. Her lips curved faintly, almost a smile. Humans never change. Neither do Kether, he replied. That earned him a quiet laugh, short, brittle but real. For a moment the tension eased. Then, without warning, the console beeped. Elias turned sharply. 3 signatures had reappeared on the scanner, closer now, moving fast. The system flickered as if something was trying to jam the feed. They found you, he said. She closed her eyes. No, they found us. A loud thud shook the outer wall. The metal frame groaned under pressure. Elias grabbed his rifle. Saren didn't move. She just stood still, breathing slowly, as though focusing on something deep within herself. Whatever you're doing, he said, do it faster. I'm trying to block them, she said through clenched teeth. They're learning. They know my patterns. The door buckled inward, sparks showering the floor. A limb punched through, sleek, segmented, glistening with acid rain. Elias fired, and the impact sprayed molten shards across the wall. Fall back, he shouted. Saren staggered, blood trickling from her nose. If I push harder, I can stop them, but I might burn out the link entirely. Sounds great to me. She shook her head violently. You don't understand. If I sever it, they'll know I'm independent. They'll come with everything they have. The door split apart with a shriek of tearing metal. One of the machines crawled through, its limbs clicking like knives. Elias raised his rifle, but Saren's voice stopped him. Don't shoot. What? Look. The creature halted mid-step. Its glowing eyes flickered between colors, then focused on Saren. She raised a trembling hand, light spilling from her fingertips again. But this time it wasn't raw or violent. It was controlled, gentle. The machine tilted its head, emitting a low mechanical hum. For a moment, Elias thought she'd somehow pacified it. Then the creature spoke. In a perfect imitation of Saren's voice, it whispered, "You shouldn't exist." Saren's face went pale. Elias aimed the rifle again. What did it just? Before he could finish, the machine lunged. Not at Elias, but at her. She screamed, and the lights blew out. The room plunged into darkness, lit only by flashes of lightning through the window. Metal crashed. Sparks flew. Elias fired blindly, the pulse blasts illuminating the chaos in stuttering bursts. He caught a glimpse of Saren grappling with the thing. Light spilling from her eyes, her skin blazing like fire trapped beneath glass. Then everything went still. When the emergency lights flickered back on, the creature was gone. Saren stood in the center of the room, shaking, her arms scorched and bleeding. Elias lowered his weapon slowly. "Saren, what happened?" She looked at him with hollow eyes. "It spoke the truth." "What truth?" "That I'm not what I claimed," she whispered. "I'm not just a hybrid, Elias. I'm the prototype that killed the others." The storm had burned itself out by morning, leaving the horizon drowned in mist. The air smelled of ozone and charred metal. The outpost looked like it had survived a small war. Walls blackened, consoles sparking, fragments of shattered drones scattered across the mud. Elias stood outside, rifle slung over his shoulder, scanning the fog for movement. The night's chaos still echoed in his head. The flashes of light, Saren's scream, that impossible voice saying, "You shouldn't exist." Behind him, the door creaked open. Saren stepped out, wrapped in a blanket he'd patched with synthcloth. The faint light of dawn caught the network of silver lines still etched across her arms. They pulsed softly, fading and returning in time with her heartbeat. She looked fragile but unervingly calm, as if her body hadn't nearly torn itself apart hours ago. Elias didn't turn right away. He was still thinking about what she'd said, the prototype that killed the others. That wasn't just guilt talking. There had been something real in her voice, something raw that cut past fear. "You should be resting," he said finally. "I can't," she whispered. "Every time I close my eyes, I see them." He glanced at her. "The hunters." She shook her head. "The others like me." She sat on a broken crate near the entrance, fingers curling around the edge as though to steady herself. "There were 12 of us in the Meridian Project. 6 human, 6 Kether. They paired us, each pair meant to share memories, emotions, instincts, to bridge 2 species through neural fusion." Elias leaned against the railing, listening. "For a while," she continued, "it worked. We could feel each other's thoughts, finish sentences, even dream together. But then, something changed. The synchronization started erasing the human side. One by one, they stopped responding. The Kether scientists said the human minds were too fragile to sustain empathy resonance. They called it a necessary loss. Her voice broke. "My partner was the last to go. His name was Daniel." Elias's jaw tightened. "Human?" "Yes," he volunteered. He thought he could handle it. She stared down at her hands. He was wrong. There was silence for a long moment. Only the faint hum of wind through the damaged antenna filled the air. When he started to fade, she went on. "I begged them to stop. I told them he was still in there, trapped, hearing me. They said if I interfered, they'd terminate both of us." Her voice turned hollow. "So I did what I wasn't supposed to. I overloaded the link, tried to pull him back." She looked up, eyes wet but unblinking. "Instead, I burned out every neural connection in the lab. They died screaming, 11 others, human and Kether alike. The entire facility went dark. When I woke up, only Daniel's body was there. His mind was gone. And my skin looked like this." Elias didn't speak. He'd seen war crimes, but this was something else. Something born of desperation rather than cruelty. He'd been on Ivara Prime when the Kether bombed the medical camps. He'd watched men tear each other apart for rations. Yet this sounded like a mistake made by someone who'd believed in hope. "You think I'm a monster," she said quietly. "I think you did what you thought you had to," Elias said. "That doesn't make it easier to live with." She gave a small, bitter laugh. You sound like him. Daniel used to say that. We're not heroes, Saren. Just people trying not to be worse than yesterday. Elias finally looked at her, studying the faint tremor in her hands. So what do you want now? Redemption. She shook her head. Peace. Not much of that left in this galaxy. Maybe not, she said softly. But I heard humans still try. That almost made him smile. Almost. He opened his mouth to answer, but the motion sensor on his wristband flickered. A red pulse. Movement South Ridge, 6 kilometers out. Not a machine this time. Warm bodies. Elias turned sharply, scanning the valley. We've got company. Saren tensed. Hunters. Too small. Human signatures. He zoomed in, adjusting the scope on his wristband. The silhouettes moved with military precision, forming a search pattern. Federation recon team. Damn it. Her expression hardened. They'll kill me if they find out what I am. Then we make sure they don't. He grabbed a satchel from inside the cabin and started packing essentials. Rations, med injectors, energy cells. Saren watched him in silence for a moment before asking, You're helping me? Elias stopped, meeting her eyes. If they see the bodies outside, they'll assume I was working with you anyway. Might as well make it worth it. She hesitated, guilt flickering across her face. You don't have to do this. Neither did you when you came to my door, he said, slinging the rifle over his shoulder. Let's move. They headed out through the back ridge, where the terrain broke into jagged canyons. The acid mist clung to their clothes, stinging where it touched skin. Saren kept pace behind him, silent, her eyes scanning every shadow. As they climbed higher, Elias noticed something strange. Small metallic shards embedded in the rocks, faintly glowing blue. What the hell is this? He muttered. Saren crouched beside one, touching it gently. Her fingers trembled. It's residue from the hunter's assimilation tech. They use it to rebuild themselves. If this much remains... Her voice trailed off. What? They're evolving. Elias cursed under his breath. How fast? Faster than we can run. As if summoned by her words, a low mechanical hum rippled through the valley. The sound grew, multiplied, became a chorus of vibrations that made the rocks tremble. Elias turned, scanning the mist, and froze. Shapes emerged from the fog. Not 3, not 5, dozens. Their bodies glowed faintly, a shifting blend of metal and organic tissue. The hunters. Down! Elias shouted, pulling Saren behind a boulder just as a beam of light scorched the ground where she'd been standing. The impact hissed, vaporizing the wet earth. Saren's breathing quickened. I can't fight that many. They're too close. Then what do you suggest? She closed her eyes. I can distract them, make them think I'm somewhere else. But it'll take everything I have. No way, Elias snapped. You said that nearly kills you every time. I don't have a choice. Before he could stop her, she stood and raised her hands. Light spilled from her palms, weaving into the air like threads of gold. The mist shimmered, and for an instant, the world itself seemed to glitch. Elias felt the hair on his arms rise as static danced across the rocks. The hunters froze mid-step, their heads turning in unison toward the wrong direction, toward the empty horizon. Move, Saren gasped. He grabbed her arm and ran. They sprinted through the canyon, boots splashing through shallow streams of acid runoff. Behind them, the air buzzed with distortion, the illusion starting to fracture. Saren stumbled once, catching herself on Elias's shoulder. Her skin was hot to the touch, veins glowing brighter than before. When they finally reached the far ridge, Elias pulled her into cover behind an old supply crawler. She collapsed, shaking, her breath ragged. The light in her body flickered weakly. He checked her pulse again. Still there, but faint. You're burning yourself out, he said. She tried to smile. Better me than them. Don't say that. She looked up at him with tired eyes. You don't understand. I wasn't supposed to exist this long. The others, they designed us with failsafes. I was the only one who broke free before they could erase me. My blood carries the code they need to restart the project. Elias's heart sank. You mean they're not trying to kill you, they're trying to take you alive? Saren nodded weakly. If they get me, it all begins again. Elias stared at her, the weight of it settling in. She wasn't just a refugee. She was the spark that could reignite a war. The distant hum rose again. The hunters were adjusting, recalibrating. The illusion was fading. Elias loaded his rifle and crouched beside her. Then they're not getting you. Not while I'm breathing. She looked at him with disbelief. Why would you help me? He didn't answer at first. Then he said quietly, because I've got blood on my hands too. Maybe this time I can stop adding to it. Saren's eyes softened, but before she could reply, a single red beam cut through the mist, scanning across their hiding spot. Elias exhaled slowly. Looks like we're out of time. Saren's voice trembled. Then I have to show you something. Something I've never shown anyone. He turned to her. What are you talking about? She lifted her hand, and beneath the skin, the faint glow of circuitry pulsed faster, brighter, until Elias realized it wasn't light. It was movement. Saren, he whispered, backing away. What are you doing? Her eyes shone like molten gold. You said you wanted to understand. Then see what I really am. She pressed her hand to her chest. The air rippled, and then her skin began to split, silently, seamlessly, as if the human shell was peeling away to reveal what had been hidden underneath all along. The rain never really stopped on Eos 9. It was a planet of constant gray, where the horizon blurred into an endless mist and the sun barely had the courage to show itself. Elias had grown used to it, the quiet, the isolation, the mechanical hum of his workshop beneath the downpour. But since the alien woman arrived, silence had turned into something else. He'd named her Lyra, though she hadn't corrected him. For the last 2 nights, she'd slept near the heat core, wrapped in the same old blanket he used to keep his tools from freezing. Every so often, he'd catch her watching him. Not with suspicion, but with a kind of sorrow he couldn't decipher. That morning, she stood at the edge of the workshop window, tracing the rain as if memorizing it. Elias worked at the bench, pretending not to notice. The damaged transmitter lay open before him, wires like veins spilling from its casing. You ever seen human tech before? He asked quietly. Her voice was soft. Only the kind that kills. He looked up, surprised by the bluntness. Fair enough, he said, tightening a wire. This one just talks. Doesn't kill anyone. She hesitated, eyes flicking toward the comm device. Then why does it frighten me? Elias didn't answer right away. He understood. Out here, communication meant exposure. A signal was a beacon, a trail leading to whoever was still listening. And Lyra clearly didn't want to be found. Later, when he stepped outside to check the solar collectors, he noticed the faint shimmer on the horizon. Not light movement, something hovering low and scanning the ridges. His gut twisted. Patrol drones. Maybe human, maybe not. He ducked low and ran back inside. She was standing by the transmitter, her hands hovering over it like she was about to smash it. When she saw him, she froze. Don't, he said, holding up a hand. They'll trace it, she whispered. They always trace it. Elias's jaw tightened. They're already scanning. Whatever you're hiding, they're close to finding it. For the first time since she arrived, fear cracked her composure. You don't understand what they'll do if they find me. Then help me understand. She hesitated, breathing fast, and then whispered something in a language that made the air feel heavy. A low, humming resonance filled the room. Not sound exactly, but vibration. Elias's tools rattled. The walls trembled faintly, and then it stopped. He stared at her, heart pounding. What was that? Her eyes glowed faintly, like liquid silver catching light. A code. It's inside me. What kind of code? The kind your armies built, she said quietly. The kind they lost control of. For a long time, neither spoke. Elias moved closer, trying to understand what kind of creature stood before him. Someone capable of emotion, fear, guilt, and power that could shake the air itself. "You're not just some refugee," he said. "You're a weapon," she finished for him. Her voice trembled. "They called me Project Lyra. I was made to end your species. But I refused." He took a step back. "You're saying you were engineered by humans?" "By both," she said softly. "Humans and my kind. You made us to understand emotion. And we did. Too well." A crack of thunder tore across the sky. Elias turned toward the window and froze. Lights were sweeping the valley now. The drones were closer. He grabbed her wrist. "We have to move. Now." She didn't resist as he led her through the back of the workshop toward the storage tunnels that stretched under the hillside. The rain hit like knives, cold and blinding. When they reached the hatch, she paused, looking back at the faint lights descending through the mist. "They'll destroy everything," she murmured. "Not just me." "Then let's not make it easy for them," he said. Inside the tunnels, the air was thick and metallic, echoing with every step. The old mining shafts had been abandoned for years, relics from when the colony still believed in rebuilding after the war. Now they were just empty veins in the planet's bones. Elias lit a portable lamp. "We'll stay here till the scans pass." She nodded but seemed distant. Her eyes had dimmed again, the glow gone. He wanted to ask her what it felt like, being built for destruction yet haunted by empathy, but something in her posture told him she was unraveling enough already. After a long silence, she spoke without turning to him. "Do you ever regret surviving?" Elias frowned. "What kind of question is that?" "The kind only survivors ask," she said. "I saw what your war did. I saw humans burning the sky just to make a point. You call it defense. We called it madness." He wanted to argue, but her voice broke something inside him. He remembered the faces of his squad, the cities turned to ash, the orders that had stopped making sense. "Yeah," he said quietly. "We were mad. And yet you helped me," she said softly. "Even when you saw what I am. Maybe that's the part that still makes me human." She looked at him then, and something fragile passed between them. An understanding that neither of them wanted, but both needed. Suddenly, a faint whine echoed through the tunnel. A mechanical pitch that made Elias's stomach drop. He killed the lamp. The sound grew louder. "Drones," he whispered. "They're inside." Lyra's breathing quickened. "They can sense heat. We need to move." They ran through the narrow corridors, ducking low as searchlights flickered against the tunnel walls. The hum of engines filled the air, bouncing off the stone in maddening echoes. Elias led her down a side shaft, but when they reached the end, it was blocked by a collapse. Trapped, the sound of hovering engines drew closer. Lyra pressed her back against the wall, trembling. Elias scanned the rubble desperately, and then saw a narrow crevice above them, a ventilation shaft. "Up there," he whispered. "Climb." She hesitated, looking at him. "You first." He shook his head. "You can't hide your heat signature. They'll see you if you stay." Her hand brushed his arm. "You'll die if you stay." "Maybe. But I'm human. We're good at dying for bad reasons." Her lips parted, like she wanted to argue, but instead she climbed. He gave her a push, then turned to face the sound approaching fast. The drone's beam cut through the darkness. A small spherical scout, humming like a predator's breath. Elias grabbed a metal pipe and hurled it. The pipe struck the drone's lens with a sharp crack. The machine spun, disoriented, but it was enough. Lyra reached the shaft above, and in that instant the drone's sensors locked onto Elias instead. The last thing he saw before the beam hit him was Lyra's hand reaching down. Her face twisted with something that looked too human to be artificial. The blast tore through the tunnel, blinding white. When Lyra finally crawled out into the cold air above, the rain still fell, but the valley below burned with light. And somewhere under that fire, a faint mechanical pulse still echoed Elias's workshop, trying to send one final signal. A distress call. But not for rescue. For her. The fire from the valley burned through the night, orange light bleeding through the endless rain. From the ridge, Lyra could see the distant glow where Elias's workshop once stood. reduced to ash and twisted metal. The drones had gone quiet. The silence was worse. It wasn't the silence of safety. It was the kind that came when something was over. She pressed a hand to her chest, feeling the strange rhythm pulsing there. It wasn't her own. It was his. His heartbeat, copied through the interface when he'd touched her arm during the escape. His neural pattern had imprinted inside her. Humans called it data transfer. Her kind called it memory echo. Whatever it was, it felt alive. She followed the old mining trail until dawn broke. A faint, colorless light over the ruins of EOS 9. The rain had stopped, but the air smelled like static and metal. The world felt hollow without the sound of him moving around the workshop, muttering at machines that didn't care. Every time she tried to push the thought away, she saw his face again, the way he'd stayed behind so she could climb. He shouldn't have done that. No human should have helped her. Not after what she was. She reached the ridge that overlooked the abandoned colony fields. Scattered greenhouses lay shattered, glass gleaming like shards of frozen sky. There, among the ruins, she saw movement, 3 figures in scout armor. Human. Their scanners hummed, sweeping the terrain. She crouched low, adjusting the device Elias had given her before they fled. A frequency scrambler that hid her signal. He'd said, "If you ever need to disappear, flip this switch. It's not perfect, but it's human." The memory almost made her laugh, bitterly. The scouts moved on, their voices distant. She waited until they vanished, then slipped into the wreckage of an old hydro lab. Inside, the air was damp and smelled of rust. She found a corner and sat there, trembling, trying to silence the noise in her head. The static, the fragments of his voice that weren't supposed to exist. "Lyra?" The whisper came faint, mechanical. Her eyes widened. The voice wasn't a hallucination. It was transmitting through her neural link. Elias's voice. She touched the side of her neck. "Elias! Signal weak. Don't." The rest dissolved into static. She froze. He was alive. Somehow. Without thinking, she tore apart the broken transmitter on the lab bench, reconfiguring its parts. Her hands moved with desperate precision, connecting alien circuits to human tech. A thing no one was meant to do. Sparks hissed, blue light flickered. And then clarity. "Lyra, don't come back." She exhaled sharply, tears stinging her eyes. "You're alive. You shouldn't have helped me." His voice rasped through the interference. "They're tracking you now. They know what you are." She clenched her fists. "You think I care about them? You should. They'll destroy this entire sector to erase you. I've seen their orders. You have to run, Lyra. Run far." She shook her head. "You're hurt, aren't you? I can hear it. Tell me where you are." Static surged again, his words breaking apart. "Old relay sector 8, don't." Then silence. Lyra sat there for a long moment, the machine still humming faintly. Then she stood. The map in her mind flickered to life. Sector 8 was deep in the collapsed valley, where old communication towers still lay buried. If he was alive, he was hiding among ghosts. She gathered what she could. A thermal cloak, a charged cell, a rusted pulse blade. Her kind were never meant to feel fear, but the moment she stepped into the open field, she felt it anyway. Not for herself, but for him. The journey took hours. The terrain was jagged, a labyrinth of rock and mud. Along the way, she passed signs of battle, burned drones, shattered rifles, the twisted remains of machines too damaged to recognize. She paused by one wreck and saw a human insignia on the side. Colonial Defense Corps. The same emblem Elias once wore on his jacket. He used to scrape the paint off, saying he didn't like to carry ghosts. By dusk, she reached the edge of the old relay complex. Massive steel towers leaned like dying trees, their cables torn and swaying in the wind. Somewhere beneath them, faint light flickered. She descended the slope quietly, blade drawn. The lower levels were half submerged in stagnant water. She found a hatch and forced it open, the rust grinding under her hands. Inside, she heard the faint hum of generators, human tech patched together. And then she saw him. Elias sat slumped against a console, his arm bandaged crudely, his clothes soaked with blood and grease. When she stepped inside, he looked up weakly, surprise flickering in his eyes. "I told you not to come." She knelt beside him, scanning his wound. "You're lucky I don't follow orders." He managed a small, painful smile. "I noticed." She tore open a medpack and started cleaning the wound. He winced but didn't stop her. The silence between them wasn't awkward anymore. It was heavy, alive with unspoken things. Finally, he said, "They'll be here soon. You shouldn't be near me. If they find us together, they'll kill you," she finished. "And they'll use me." He nodded. "You said you refused their control." "How?" "I cut out the signal core," she said softly. "The one that told me who to kill." He stared at her for a long moment. "You shouldn't have survived that." "I didn't," she whispered. "Not the way I was." He reached for her hand, his fingers trembling. "You're not like them, are you?" She looked away. "Neither are you." Something flickered on the console, motion sensors detecting movement above. Elias forced himself upright, grabbing a rifle. "They're here." Lyra stood, her eyes narrowing as light glowed faintly beneath her skin. "Then let them come." "No," he said firmly. "You use that power, they'll find us faster. We can't win a fight." She looked at him, conflicted. "Then what do you suggest?" "Hope they still think I'm the one worth capturing." Her voice trembled. "You're human. They'll spare you." He gave her a small, hollow smile. "You don't know humans as well as you think." A crash echoed above them. Boots. Voices. Lyra moved to the shadows as soldiers poured through the hatch. Elias raised his rifle but didn't fire. The commander stepped forward, visor glinting in the dim light. "Elias Ward," the man said. "You're under arrest for harboring enemy property." Elias's jaw clenched. "She's not property." The commander's gaze shifted toward the darkness where Lyra hid. "Where is it?" Elias didn't answer. The man raised his weapon. "You think protecting it makes you noble? You're just delaying the inevitable." Elias's grip tightened on his rifle. "Maybe, but that's the one thing humans are good at, delaying the inevitable." Before the commander could reply, the lights flickered out. A soft hum filled the air, and then the shadows moved. Lyra stepped into the open, her eyes glowing like molten silver. The soldiers froze, fear flashing across their faces. Elias whispered, "Lyra, no," but she didn't listen. The glow spread from her hands to the walls, lighting the room with impossible brilliance. The soldiers' weapons sparked, metal liquefying under invisible pressure. The air itself seemed to bend. When it ended, the soldiers lay unconscious. Lyra collapsed to her knees, trembling. Elias caught her before she fell. "I told you not to," he whispered. She looked up at him, her eyes dimming. "I couldn't let them take you." He held her close, rainwater dripping through the broken ceiling above them. "You shouldn't have helped me either," he murmured. And in that ruined relay station, surrounded by silence and smoke, both of them knew. It was already too late to turn back. The storm returned the next day, heavy and unrelenting, as if the sky itself wanted to drown the world. The relay station was half-collapsed now, its roof sagging and its power core flickering weakly. Lyra sat beside Elias, who was propped against a wall, his shoulder wrapped in what remained of a med bandage. Every sound outside made them tense. The rain, the wind, the faint hiss of static that came and went like someone whispering through the walls. She hadn't spoken since the night before. The light had burned out of her veins after she'd used her ability to disable the soldiers. It left her weak, pale, trembling in a way that wasn't physical but something deeper, like the act itself had scraped away a piece of her. Elias tried to fix the generator, to keep himself busy, but every few seconds he looked at her, as if afraid she'd vanish the moment he turned away. "They'll come back," he said finally. "Command never stops after one failed sweep." She didn't look up. "Then why are you still here?" He gave a tired smile. "Because if they find you alone, they'll kill you faster." Her gaze lifted to meet his. "You think you can stop them?" "No," he said quietly. "But I can buy time. Humans are good at wasting time." She almost smiled at that, but it didn't reach her eyes. You talk about your people like you're not one of them. Maybe I stopped being one when the war ended. He went silent after that, the only sound the soft hum of his repairs and the storm outside. Then a faint pulse flickered across the console. A signal. Not from the human patrols this time. Different frequency, deeper, alien. Lyra froze. That's not them, she whispered. Elias frowned, adjusting the scanner. Then who? Her face drained of color. My kind. The signal repeated, rhythmic, precise, almost like a heartbeat. Lyra recognized it instantly. They found me. Elias straightened. Your people? I thought they wanted you dead. They did, she said. But that was before they realized what I carry. He felt a chill crawl up his spine. You mean the code? She nodded slowly. It's not just data. It's a living sequence. They can use it to rebuild the neural weapon. That's why they need me alive. Elias swore under his breath, pacing. So if the humans find you, they'll kill you. If your people find you, they'll use you. She looked at him with quiet resignation. And if either finds you, they'll make you watch. The console crackled again. A new transmission came through, the voice soft, melodic, but wrong in its calmness. Lyra of the third synthesis, you are not forgotten. Return to us, and we will forgive your rebellion. Elias's eyes darted to her. You can't answer that. She already had. Her hand trembled above the control panel, but her voice was steady. I won't go back. Then the human dies, the voice replied. The transmission ended. Silence. Elias exhaled, a humorless laugh escaping him. Friendly people you've got. She looked at him helplessly. They don't understand mercy. They only understand purpose. He crouched beside her. Then we changed the purpose. Before she could ask what he meant, the station shook. The floor rattled, dust falling from the ceiling. The scanners lit up, multiple contacts descending fast. They're both coming, Elias muttered. Human patrols from the east, alien ships from orbit. They'll be here within the hour. Lyra stood, swaying slightly. Then we run. He grabbed her arm. There's nowhere to run to. EOS 9's storm grid covers everything within 50 clicks. We'll never make it. She turned toward the central core, eyes dark with determination. Then we make them come to us. He didn't like the sound of that. What are you planning? Something your people designed me for, she said. Only this time, I choose who it hurts. Lyra. But she was already interfacing with the relay system. Her hands pressed against the cables, light crawling beneath her skin once more. The generator screamed, panels flickering wildly. Elias rushed to disconnect her, but the surge knocked him back. The air grew heavy, the storm outside intensifying as if responding to her pulse. Stop it, he shouted. You'll burn out your core. Her voice came distorted, layered with static. If I amplify the signal, it'll jam both fleets. They'll never find us. And what happens to you? She didn't answer. The glow around her grew brighter, unbearable. Then, for a split second, the world went completely silent. A massive wave of energy pulsed outward, visible even through the storm. A dome of blue light expanding across the valley. When it passed, the clouds split open. The rain stopped. Elias blinked against the brightness. Smoke filled the room. Lyra, she was on the floor, motionless. He crawled to her side, checking her pulse. Faint, but there. Her skin was cold, her eyes half open, the silver glow fading. He lifted her head gently. Hey, stay with me. Her voice came weak, barely audible. They can't trace us now, but they'll still come. Then we'll move again, he said. We'll keep running. She shook her head slowly. No, you'll keep running. I won't survive another surge. He swallowed hard. Don't say that. But she smiled faintly. You shouldn't have helped me, Elias. You were supposed to turn me in. Yeah, well, he said, his voice cracking. Humans don't do what they're supposed to. A sudden sound broke the moment. the high-pitched whine of an aircraft descending nearby. He dragged her toward the shadows, heart pounding. Through the broken window, he saw it. A small dropship landing in the clearing, human insignia shining on its hull. Soldiers poured out, weapons raised. Elias's breath caught. They found us. Lyra struggled to sit up. Go. They'll take me, not you. Not a chance. He grabbed his rifle, checking the charge. The soldiers were advancing fast, voices echoing through the storm-washed air. A commander shouted something he couldn't make out. Lyra reached for his arm, her grip weak but desperate. Promise me, she whispered. If they capture me, don't let them reactivate me. He stared at her. I can't. Promise. The footsteps were right outside now. He nodded, throat tight. I promise. She smiled faintly. Then whatever happens next, don't look back. The door burst open. Blinding light filled the room. Elias raised his rifle. And somewhere in that chaos of shouts and thunder and light, the first shot was fired. The night was silent except for the wind rattling the thin metal sheets of the abandoned outpost. The lights had long since burned out, leaving the room in shades of dim blue and cold gray. Erin sat near the half-functioning terminal, watching her sleep. The alien woman who once begged for shelter, now lying curled up in the corner, as though the whole galaxy still hunted her even in dreams. Her name, if it was truly hers, was Sarai. And though she looked peaceful now, he could still remember the blood, the tremor in her hands, and the way she whispered something under her breath before falling asleep every night. A phrase he still couldn't translate. He reached out for the small pendant she always wore, a smooth crystal that shimmered faintly even without light. He'd run every scan he could, every frequency test, but it didn't match any known material or signal pattern. And yet, last night, when she woke screaming, it had glowed, bright enough to burn his retinas. That wasn't fear. That was memory, something buried deep. Sarai stirred suddenly, her eyes snapping open, twin shades of silver reflecting faint motes of light from the broken console. She sat up, breathing hard. You touched it again, she said quietly, her voice sharp but tired. It reacts to memory, not to curiosity. Then tell me what memory, Erin said, his tone low, careful. Because that glow wasn't random. It was searching for something, or someone. She turned away, hugging her knees. For a long time she didn't speak. Then, almost in a whisper, she said, It was searching for you. He froze. The terminal hummed softly, casting their shadows long and distorted against the cracked wall. Me? He asked. Sarai, I didn't exist when your people came through this sector. You said your ship crashed decades ago. Not decades, she interrupted. Centuries. Her voice trembled. We don't measure time as you do. The war we fled, it didn't end. Folded. Like space itself turned inward. Erin's heart pounded. The Federation archives never mentioned temporal anomalies in that quadrant, but the reports from before the Great Silence had hinted at something. Alien vessels found frozen in subspace, their crew still alive but their clock centuries out of sync. If that was true, then Sarai hadn't just survived a crash. She had escaped time itself. He stood, pacing. Then the soldiers hunting you, they're not from your past. They're from ours. She looked up at him, eyes glistening. No, she said. They're from yours, but controlled by mine. Erin's breath caught. You mean? The war never ended, she said. It evolved. The terminal flickered suddenly, static crawling across the cracked display. Then a voice, faint, synthetic, distorted, bled through the noise. Unit 9 Alpha detected. Energy resonance confirmed. Retrieval protocol active. Sarai lunged forward, yanking the pendant from around her neck. They've locked on to the signal, she cried. It wasn't supposed to activate yet. Erin's instincts kicked in. He grabbed his sidearm and moved toward the window, scanning the horizon. Outside, the darkness pulsed faintly. Not light, not motion, but something heavier, almost magnetic. He turned back. Sarai, what's in that crystal? She hesitated, her lips trembling. It's not a crystal, she said. It's a memory core biological linked to my neural pattern. And it's the reason I came to your door that night. What's inside it? Everything, she said. The war, the truth, and a message your species was never meant to see. The terminal beeped again. The voice returned, louder now, layered with mechanical urgency. Signal triangulated. Extraction units en route. Damn it! Aaron pulled the power conduit from the wall, plunging the room into near darkness. How long until they're here? Sarai tilted her head, eyes unfocused. Minutes, maybe less. Then we move. He shoved open the rusted door, and cold air rushed in, heavy with static. The stars overhead flickered strangely, as if a storm was forming beyond the visible atmosphere. Sarai followed, clutching the core close. They won't stop, she said. Not until I'm erased, and you with me. As they ran down the hill toward the canyon's edge, Aaron glanced at her, breathless. Then tell me one thing, before this all ends. What's the message? She looked at him, her silver eyes glowing faintly now. Not from fear, but something else, resignation. It's not a message, she said softly. It's a memory of what we did to you. The ground shook. A streak of white light tore across the sky, followed by the distant echo of impact. Dust exploded upward, glowing like molten glass. Aaron covered her as debris rained around them. When the noise faded, a figure stepped through the haze, tall, armored, and shimmering faintly, its form human but its eyes burning with the same silver hue as Sarai's. Aaron raised his weapon. Who the hell are you? The figure spoke in a voice that was both metallic and familiar, a hybrid of frequencies that made the hair on his neck stand up. I am what she left behind, it said. And you were never meant to survive this long. Sarai's breath caught. No, she whispered. You can't be. But the figure's gaze turned toward her, calm, almost mournful. You shouldn't have remembered, it said. The message wasn't for them. It was for you. Before Aaron could react, the air around them rippled, and the world itself seemed to fold inward, bending light and sound into silence. He saw flashes, faces, battles, a sky split open, and through it all Sarai's eyes, filled with tears and light. When the distortion cleared, the canyon was empty. The figure was gone. The crystal lay shattered at Aaron's feet, glowing faintly with silver fire. And when he looked up, Sarai was staring at him, her eyes no longer alien, but entirely human. She took a step forward, trembling. Now you know, she said softly. You were one of us before the war rewrote what human meant. The words hung between them, heavy and impossible. Aaron felt his heartbeat slow, the air grow colder. He wanted to speak, but his voice failed. And then, somewhere deep within the shattered crystal, a voice whispered, faint, desperate human. If you see her eyes, remember the code. It's the only way to end this. Sarai looked at him, her expression breaking. They've found us, she whispered. But they don't know what you are yet. Aaron turned toward the distant horizon, where lights were forming. Not ships, but something older. Something that remembered him before he remembered himself. And as the first beam of light reached them, her eyes glowed one last time, and in their reflection, he saw the message hidden there. Not words, but coordinates. Coordinates leading not away from Earth, but back to where humanity had been created. The coordinates glowed faintly on the cracked display, hovering in midair like a ghost of data refusing to die. Aaron stared at them, breathing hard, his mind a blur of confusion and disbelief. The numbers weren't just coordinates, they were impossible. They pointed to a sector that didn't exist anymore, erased during the Great Collapse 2 centuries ago, swallowed by the fold storm that had destroyed entire colonies. And yet Sarai's trembling hand reached for the image as if it were something sacred. It's still there, she whispered, hidden beneath the wreckage of the old network. That's where the war began. Aaron clenched his jaw. And where it should have ended, he muttered, shoving the portable drive into his pack. We're not going there. We barely survived the last encounter. She turned toward him, her expression softer now, almost pleading. You don't understand. That place, it holds what's left of us. The memory core you saw wasn't the only one. There are hundreds, thousands, each one containing the truth about what happened to your kind. My kind? Aaron snapped. You mean the species your people experimented on, the ones you tried to overwrite? Sarai flinched. The words hit her like a blow. That wasn't me, she said quietly. That wasn't us. We were soldiers too, following orders we didn't believe in. The difference is you still have a choice. Aaron exhaled, shaking his head. You keep saying that, but every time I trust you, something else tries to kill me. Before she could respond, the old terminal crackled again. A familiar metallic voice broke through the static. Memory host located. Retrieval units approaching. Authorization code. Sarai, Delta 09. Sarai froze. That's my access code, she whispered. How did they? Aaron's gaze hardened. Someone's feeding them information. She looked at him, horrified. You think it's me? He said nothing. The silence between them was worse than accusation. Then the sound of engines filled the air, low, vibrating hums that shook the metal walls of the outpost. Aaron sprinted to the window, eyes narrowing as three black shapes descended from the clouds. Sleek, angular, and eerily familiar. Not alien. Human. Federation drones, he muttered. But those were decommissioned after the silence. Who the hell? Sarai gripped the wall, her breathing uneven. They're hybrids now, controlled by the same neural web my people built. They've merged what was left of your tech and ours. The drones landed in a tight formation, their hulls shifting like living metal. One of them opened, revealing a humanoid figure in armor, the same kind that had appeared in the canyon days ago. Aaron raised his weapon, pulling Sarai behind him. You led them here, he said. No, she said fiercely. I didn't. Then why did your code activate them? Her voice broke. Because it wasn't mine anymore. The door exploded inward. Aaron was thrown back as shards of metal flew across the room. The armored figure stepped through the smoke, its glowing visor scanning the room. It spoke with that same haunting, composite tone. Stand down, Unit 9 Alpha. Your integration protocol is incomplete. Aaron gritted his teeth. I'm not your unit. The figure tilted its head slightly. Incorrect. You are property of the Meridian Project. Prototype hybrid interface between organic human memory and... Shut up! Sarai screamed, raising her hands. Light flared between her palms, forming a barrier of flickering blue energy. The figure stumbled back, momentarily stunned. Aaron fired, hitting it square in the chest, but it only staggered, then lunged forward again. Run! Sarai shouted. They burst into the open air, sprinting toward the canyon edge where the old transport lay buried under sand and dust. The drones followed, moving with predatory grace. Aaron fired again and again, but the rounds barely slowed them. As they reached the transport, Sarai slammed her palm onto the biometric pad. The door hissed open, revealing the cold interior of a long-dead ship. Aaron jumped in, dragging her behind him, and hit the ignition. The old engines coughed, sputtered, and came alive. The ship tore through the night sky, flames licking its hull as it climbed higher and higher. Below them, the drones gave chase, launching volleys of plasma that lit up the clouds. Aaron gripped the controls, his voice raw. We can't outrun them. Sarai leaned forward, fingers flying across the console. We don't need to outrun them. We just need to fool them. How? She glanced at him, eyes glowing faintly. By betraying you. He froze. What did you just say? She didn't answer. Instead, she pressed her palm to the ship's neural console. The system recognized her instantly, her code signature lighting up every circuit. The ship jolted violently, and a distress beacon activated automatically, broadcasting her location. Sarai, what are you doing? Aaron shouted. They'll think I turned on you, she said through gritted teeth. They'll track the signal to me, and you'll have time to escape. You think I'm going to leave you behind? She looked at him with tears shining in her silver eyes. You have to. You're the only one who can reach the coordinates now. You carry the code inside you. You were part of the experiment, Aaron. The last human designed to remember the original world. If you die, they win. Again. A massive blast rocked the ship, throwing them both forward. Warning lights flared red. Hull breach imminent. Aaron grabbed her wrist, refusing to let go. I don't care what I am. I'm not letting them take you. She smiled sadly. You don't have to let them. And before he could react, she pressed her other hand to his chest, and the world exploded into light. For a heartbeat, everything froze. He saw fragments, her memories, his own, the war, the creation of the hybrids, the rewriting of history. He saw himself in another life, standing beside her as their people burned the stars. Then he was falling. The transport split apart midair, flaming wreckage scattering across the desert below. He hit the ground hard, rolling through the sand until everything went dark. When he opened his eyes, dawn was breaking. Smoke trailed into the sky. The drones were gone. The ship was gone. And Sarai was nowhere. His chest ached. He looked down and saw a faint mark glowing beneath his skin, her handprint pulsing softly. Inside it, he heard her voice, faint but alive. I told them I betrayed you. Now they'll hunt me instead. But you must finish what we started. Find the memory. Find where humanity began. Aaron stood slowly, looking toward the horizon. And as the first rays of sunlight touched the ruins, a strange shadow passed overhead. A massive structure rising from the desert, as if the ground itself remembered something long buried. It wasn't a ship. It was a monument, and carved across its ancient surface, half buried in dust, were words in both alien script and human English. To those who remember, do not forgive us, but finish what we could not. Aaron stared in silence, realizing the truth. Her betrayal hadn't damned them. It had saved them both. The desert winds howled over the ruins, carrying with them fine sand that cut like glass against Aaron's skin. He stood at the edge of the monument, staring at the alien glyphs intertwined with human letters, trying to make sense of what Sarai had left him. Her handprint, embedded beneath his skin, pulsed faintly like a heartbeat, guiding him toward something he couldn't yet see. The memory core she had carried was supposed to be hers, an archive of her people, their history, their pain. But as he followed the pulse deeper into the ruins, something didn't feel right. Every step he took, the images he remembered, the visions that flickered in his mind, seemed borrowed. They weren't her experiences, not entirely. He knelt beside a half-buried console, brushing sand from the surface. The terminal flickered alive at his touch, displaying fragmented holograms. Battles he didn't recognize, faces that felt familiar but distant, voices whispering commands in a language he almost understood. Then a sequence began, and his heart dropped. There she was, Sarai, but not her. The movements, the expressions, the agony etched across her face. They were correct, but the emotions weren't. Someone had encoded them, grafted them onto a framework meant to mimic her memory. Her history had been overwritten with something else. Aaron staggered back. She wasn't herself? A voice echoed in his head, the faint, lingering imprint of Sarai's neural signature. They took it. The memory, it wasn't mine. The realization struck him like a physical blow. All the desperation, all the fear, the pleading at his door, it had been filtered, manipulated, designed to provoke a response. The kindness he'd seen, the rebellion she had shown, it was true in part, but interwoven with a narrative someone else had written. He clenched his fists, scanning the ruined corridors for any sign of the hybrid trackers. None came, but he knew they were close. The pulse of her handprint beneath his skin had grown stronger, almost frantic. He pressed his palm against it. "Show me," he whispered. The vision came unbidden. Her face twisted in terror, and he could see her, really see her, struggling against restraints in a darkened chamber aboard a derelict ship. The air shimmered with energy, the same strange resonance that had activated her pendant, only amplified. And then he understood her memory had been stolen, copied, and overwritten by someone or something that wanted to control the war even from the shadows. Aaron's stomach turned. Who would do this? He muttered. Who would take her mind and use it? The answer came as a flash of intuition, a shadowy memory within his own neural interface. The hybrid units, the drones, the Federation soldiers, they weren't acting alone. Someone had designed them to reconstruct the war using living minds as templates. Sarai's fear, her pleas, her choices, they had been orchestrated. He stumbled further into the ruins, following the pulsing glow now emanating from a lower chamber. It was faint, but unmistakable, the memory core itself, buried beneath rubble and sand. As he lifted the panels to reach it, he saw writing scratched into the wall in the same silver-luminescent ink her pendant had emitted. Memory is not truth, only reflection, only what we allow you to see. Aaron's jaw tightened. They lied to her. They lied to all of us. He found the core, a shimmering orb humming softly with energy. As he held it, the images within shifted, revealing fragments of her life she had truly lived. The moments of genuine kindness, fleeting smiles, the small acts of courage that the manipulations had tried to erase. The core pulsed violently, and for a moment, he felt her presence. Not the false narrative, but her true self, unfiltered, uncorrupted. A sudden roar echoed through the ruins. Drones descended from the sky, faster and more precise than before. They had tracked the pulse, drawn to the authentic memory embedded in his hands. Aaron gritted his teeth and grabbed the core, running toward the cavern exit. Hold on, he muttered, activating the emergency jetpack that had been salvaged from the monument's debris. The thrusters flared, lifting him into the air just as energy blasts tore through the ruins below. Sparks flew around him, and sand sprayed like rain. From above, the drones swarmed, glowing lights circling like predators. Aaron dodged, weaving through the jagged spires of the monument, clutching the core tightly. The hum beneath his skin grew stronger, the real Sarai trying to reach him through the neural imprint, guiding him. Trust me, her voice whispered. Not the planted, manipulated one, but her own. Aaron tilted the jetpack forward, racing toward a narrow canyon that would give him cover. The drones followed relentlessly, firing streams of plasma that hissed across the stone. He dived into the shadows, the core glowing faintly, radiating warmth that reassured him, anchored him. He landed, rolling onto the rocky floor, and quickly shielded the core with debris. For a heartbeat, the world was silent, save for his ragged breathing. Then, a drone scanner swept past, missing him by inches. He exhaled, wiping sweat from his brow. They think they control her, he muttered. But they don't. Not anymore. The memory orb pulsed once more, and he felt her consciousness brush against his mind. The voice was clearer now, stronger, untamed. Find the source, destroy the manipulator, and set us free. Aaron nodded, determination hardening his resolve. Then that's exactly what we'll do. He stood, brushing dust from his jacket, and looked back at the ruins. The sun was rising, painting the desert in blood-orange hues. Somewhere in the haze, he could see the glint of the hybrid units regrouping, scanning for him, scanning for her. But this time he carried the truth in his hands. And the memory that wasn't hers would lead him straight to the heart of the deception. With a final glance at the horizon, Aaron whispered, "We end this on our terms." The wind carried her silent reply, almost like a promise. Together. And with that, he vanished into the canyon, the stolen, manipulated memories burning bright behind him, ready to reclaim the story that had never truly belonged to anyone but Sarai. The canyon was silent now, the early morning haze settling like a shroud over the jagged rock formations. Aaron carried the memory core tightly against his chest, its faint pulse matching the rhythm of his own heartbeat. Sarai's presence was no longer a whisper. It was a steady stream of guidance flowing into him, coaxing him forward through every shadow and turn. For the first time, he felt that he wasn't just running from enemies. He was running toward something larger than himself, toward her. Hours passed as they navigated the labyrinth of rock and dust. Each step brought new dangers. hybrid scouts lurking in the corners of the canyon, drones scanning the skies, and remnants of Federation patrols combing the ground. Yet, Aaron moved with a precision and calm born of desperation, his mind attuned to the faint hum of Sarai's neural imprint. She was inside him now, guiding him, her thoughts and fears entwined with his own. He found her at last, waiting in the hollow remains of an ancient outpost, the place she had indicated through the core. Her form was crouched, tense, arms wrapped around herself as though bracing for some invisible blow. When she saw him, her silver eyes widened, flickering with relief and disbelief. "Aaron," she whispered, voice shaking. "You came." He dropped to his knees in front of her, letting the core hover between them, its glow illuminating the dust around their feet. "I promised," he said simply. "I'd follow you anywhere, whatever it takes." Her shoulders sagged as the tension left her body. "I've never been allowed to trust like this," she admitted, her voice barely audible. "Not after the war, not after what they did to me, to us." Aaron reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face. His fingers lingered on her cheek, feeling the warmth of life beneath the cold silver sheen of her skin. "You don't have to be afraid anymore," he said. "I'm here. I won't let them take you again." Her lips trembled, and she looked down, ashamed yet unable to pull away from his gaze. "All my life, I was trained to survive, to hide, to obey. Fear was my only companion." But she met his eyes, and for the first time, there was something else there, something fragile, but bright. "But now I feel something else, something I can't name." Aaron smiled softly, a laugh escaping him, shaky but genuine. "You can call it trust, or maybe even love." She tilted her head, startled. "Love? That isn't supposed to happen. Not for someone like me, not for someone like us." He took her hand in his, feeling the energy pulse from the neural imprint through her skin. A rhythm that had been fear for so long but was now shifting, toward warmth, toward life. "Then let's make it happen. Right now. We've survived fear together, fought for truth together. Maybe it's time we survive love too." For a moment, they just stared at each other, the world around them fading to shadows and light. Then she leaned forward, closing the gap between them. Their foreheads touched, and the core pulsed in resonance, as though approving this union. This merging of two souls forged in fear and conflict but now choosing connection. Outside, the distant hum of approaching drones faded. They hadn't found the outpost yet. Aaron held her tighter, feeling her tremble against him. Not from fear this time, but from the overwhelming surge of relief, trust, and something far deeper. "Do you trust me?" he asked softly. Her lips curved into a faint smile, eyes shimmering with unshed tears. I think I do. I never thought I could. Not with anyone. But with you." He pressed a gentle kiss to her forehead, savoring the moment that had been impossible for so long. The sun broke fully over the canyon, bathing them in light, and for the first time, the world seemed vast and safe, no longer dominated by war or pursuit. Sarai rested her head against his chest, letting the pulse of her memory core, and the pulse of his own heart, synchronize. "I was so afraid," she whispered. "Afraid that helping you, trusting you, would only bring more pain." Aaron stroked her hair, the warmth of life spreading through his fingers. "And yet here we are," he said. "Fear brought us together. But love will keep us alive." A quiet laughter escaped her, tentative but real. "I never thought I'd hear that in my life," she admitted. "Not after everything. After the betrayals, the battles, after the war." He pressed his lips to hers, softly, reverently. "Then let's start over. Not as soldier and fugitive, not as survivor and manipulated mind, but just us. Together." The canyon wind whispered around them, carrying away the echoes of conflict and fear. The memory core between them glowed faintly, as though it, too, had found peace in this union. Aaron wrapped his arms around her, and she held him back just as tightly. "Whatever comes next," she murmured. "We face it together." "Together," he echoed. For the first time in centuries, Sarai allowed herself to believe that love could be stronger than fear, that trust could outweigh betrayal, and that the two of them, human and alien, survivor and guide, could carve out a future not dictated by war, manipulation, or memory stolen, but by choice. And as the sun rose higher, painting the canyon in gold and silver, Erin realized that the fear that had once defined her life had transformed, finally, into something enduring, something that would light the path forward: love. They stayed there, holding each other as the world awoke around them, the hum of distant machines fading to nothing, replaced by the quiet heartbeat of a future finally their own.